I think people, athletic mindset, competitive mindset, I think people don't want to lose that edge. Do you know what I mean? So if you think, oh, let's be kinder to myself, but I'm going to be not as good. Do you know what I mean? Is there something in that? Have you found
Oh
people who
no,
you've worked with like that or not?
I don't know. Like, I think if you've come from a background where you're so used to fighting for everything that you've got, you know, like really maybe a difficult upbringing with a bit of abuse from relatives and stuff. Maybe that's like deep ingrained in that person that they have to fight to survive. So they put that into the context of sport, and yeah, that kind of narrative really works for them. Whereas if you haven't kind of suffered such an occurrence in your upbringing, you it's not helpful to have that negative tone in your head, because it kind of sets you up for, you're setting your expectations too high and inevitably you fail because of, you know, for instance, like school. I'm in quite a, I went to private school, and so there's a test to get in there, so you have to be relatively intelligent to actually get accepted into the school. So there's that kind of overhanging pressure that performance is all about, how you perform in academia rather than who you are as a person or what else you can do. So with that kind of hanging over you constantly, any kind of slip up, you constantly nitpicking at these little imperfections, and they kind of build up. And in my case, I just absolutely fucking flunked my A levels. Like, I didn't, there was no place for me there, and I couldn't see it going any further. I just gave up. I didn't care. But it's like, you're not doing enough. You're not working hard enough. You need to spend more time on it. You need to pay more attention. These tiny little things kind of just constantly humming in the background. It's unsettling. It's not nice. It's not a comfortable place to be. And when that creeps in performance, in sport, that's never served me. That little negative tone at the back of my mind. Like, I have to think positively, and I have to visualize everything happening in a very, very systematic way, and in a positive, systematic way, for me to be able to perform in a positive manner. Otherwise, I slip up. It's like you're condemning yourself to this little whisper in the back of your head.
It's almost like there's a superpower inside you, but you've got to know when to use it, kind of thing. Yeah, because it is quite. Yeah, I found that as people, performers, athletes and stuff go on, they've actually got to start to manage that, because they've never had to think about that in the past. It's just got them through it.
Yeah.
You know, but when you get to a certain level, that kind of goes against you in a way, doesn't it? It
Yeah.
sort of kind of hinders your performance,
Yeah.
doesn't it? Because then you've got to be calm, and then you might be in front of crowds, and there's loads of different elements that kind of creep in there, isn't there?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, there is.
Interesting. Feel like I've just started right in the middle of in a conversation, like the mid level of your life, but it's a nice start, because I know where we can go to with your story as well. But one thing I don't know is like where you're from, where were you raised? So let's go back to that. Let's go back to the start.
Okay, I'm from Hartlepool. That's where I grew up. I lived there until the age of 18 when I moved out. Same house, a nice area of Hartlepool, West Park. My parents were biomedical scientists at the Hartlepool Path Lab, so well-paid jobs. You know, a nice area of town, which was really, really pleasant to anybody who knows Hartlepool. And some people who are born and bred in Hartlepool don't know that there's even a nice area. So, yeah, so born and bred Hartlepool. I went to a local primary school on the estate that I grew up in. Really small primary school, West Park Primary. In year 4, I moved to Teesside High, Teesside Prep, in Eaglescliffe, and that's where I stayed until the age of 17.
Is that an all-girls school as well?
It was an all-girls school.
So obviously prep I think prep is an all-girls school. Is that right, or is that?
Yeah,
What's the
well,
definition of prep?
preparatory school,
Is
isn't it?
it?
It's to prepare you for academia,
Oh,
like the
okay,
next
yeah,
leg
like
up,
higher
isn't
level.
it?
Yeah,
I don't.
yeah.
I have no idea.
Okay.
But it ceased to be an all-girls school the year that I left. The following September, they introduced young boys into the kindergarten years, and then introduced them into sixth form, and then they kind of bridged the gap across the years. So every year there's boys and girls.
So, did you grow up with any brothers or sisters?
I've got an older sister. She's 4 years older than me. We went to the same school. She went there a little sooner than I did. Not sure whether that had anything to do with what age they let kids in, because there is a kindergarten there. Might have been more to do with affordability from my parents. Yeah, we're very similar. We're very, very different as well. She performed really well in school, very much academically minded, really intelligent. Not an awful lot of common sense growing up. She seems to have an awful lot more now that she's lived a bit longer. She turned 40 last month. She will hate that I've mentioned that. She's one of those, that thinks the world's going to end when she reaches this magical number of years on Earth. She was very good at sports in school. I remember she was very popular with a lot of rich girls. Really good at art, really creative. I think had she had different parents who weren't in the medical field, who were maybe more creative types and successful with the arts, she might have moved down the lines of fashion design, because she was very much into going to London Fashion Week.
So, what does she do then, Jenny?
She's a doctor.
So she kind of went into the field your parents
She
wanted
did
her to do?
exactly what my dad wanted to do, and for whatever reason couldn't or didn't. So she achieved basically what subconsciously she's gone exactly down that road.
It sounds like she's got talents. Like it's easy. Education comes easy for her, but she's also artistic. That's quite rare, isn't it? Really.
It really is, and I don't think she realizes just how special she is.
Yeah.
If only she could recognize that in herself. Like, she could turn her hand to anything. She's a wonderful cook. Like, she could be a Michelin star chef in a fabulous restaurant. She's got such exquisite taste. She can pick loads of different notes out of her palette. She's a wonderful interior designer. Like, she's bought a few properties and now she's renting them, and she does them up really, really nice on a brilliant budget as well. So she's not just, she's got very expensive taste, but she's really money savvy as well. She understands all of that.
Is she a very confident person as well, Jenny?
No,
She's not.
she wouldn't give that off to the outside world. She wouldn't let her peers know that, but the people that are very close to her would know that there's a much softer side to her, quite a, I should hate me saying the word, but vulnerable, like child side to her as well.
Mm-hmm. I mean, we're praising your sister, so high five to her. I think she's done really well, and I'm kind of intrigued about that as well. That kind of artistic mindset as well as an academic one, because I haven't seen it often. I remember a few kids at school who went on to be teachers, but were really good at art. But when you've only got one thing, and that's all you can do, and an artist mindset's usually like related to OCD, ADHD, and all the other lovely things which we kind of have categories for now, which we didn't back then. So, growing up with your sister, was something you always looked up to because it's an older sister?
Yes and no. So we weren't very close. I wouldn't say we were very distant either. There was just friction between us, like there is with siblings, but she was, I'd say that she's quite feminine, and I'm very much a tomboy, but she would say that she was a tomboy as well. And now that we have the ability to look back and reflect because we're mature adults, or at least we like to think we're mature and adults. She was a tomboy as well, and I think a lot of the conflict that exists in her head is because she's tried to push that to one side, because we go to an all-girls school, you know, if you show any sign of dressing masculine, you're a lesbian, and being in an all-girls school, is that a dangerous thing? I have absolutely no idea. So I was fine with it because I was not comfortable at all in skirts or dresses. Just, it felt wrong. It felt like I feel really, really wrong with that kind of costume on.
Was that from day one as well, Jenny?
Yeah.
So it's just who you are. It's kind of,
you know, like
it's nature.
autistic kids are obsessed with like taking their socks off, and just like some of them will just get fucking naked just to avoid the shackles of the costume that they've been forced into by their parents. Well, our mum, God bless her, she's got unique taste, and she's a very colourful woman. She likes lots of patterns, and there's no rhyme or reason to it. She'll just put things together that she likes, regardless of whether it actually goes together or not. And we were her subjects, so canvas 1, canvas 2, and I hated absolutely everything. I hated everything that I used to wear, apart from like plain jumpers and trousers. But I just, no.
It must be quite difficult, because if your sister's kind of, oh, I'm fine with this, and you're not, does that mean you get more of the kind of, oh, come on, Jenny, do you get more of the kind of reprimand or not?
I was a lot shyer. I was much less inclined to actually say anything.
Okay. So you kind of went along with it?
I would just put up with it. I would just kind of brave it out, because I didn't want to upset somebody, and I'm very much the people pleaser in adulthood as well. You know, I'll suffer because I don't want somebody else to suffer with my truth, which is ridiculous. But Lizzie would just say, you know, if her discomfort is always greater than somebody else's, so she would just say it, and she would just do what she pleased. But she was also a lot more striving to be independent, a lot more than I was. You know, I was quite happy doing whatever everybody else wants to do.
So was that hard on you as a kid? Were you just internalising everything, Jenny?
Probably, yeah. I was a really painfully shy kid, right up until late teens. And a few things were kind of put in place, you know, that just fall into place. You know, nobody forced me into doing these things, like, you know, get a job when you're a teenager to try and get a bit more pocket money, and enjoy your social time a bit more. But that kind of forced me into having conversations with adults, which I was not. Strangers, strange people my own age, definitely not adults. I would always remember going to my uncle's and auntie, God bless her, my auntie's house when we were kids, and that's where the rest of the family would be. We'd go on Christmas evening, and my mum's parents would be there. My mum's got quite a big family. She's one of 4, so she's got 2 brothers. She's got an older sister. 2 of those siblings had children. Auntie Sandra has 1 daughter, and Uncle Brian and Auntie Val have 2 kids. And then there would be Auntie Val's parents, or I only really remember her father, and, you know, the partners of all of the siblings. So there was a lot of people there, and the kids were not my age. So my sister's 4 years older than me, but she would still have been the youngest out of all of the cousins before I came along. So they were quite a lot older than me. I didn't really have any reason to mix with them, although they would try, because they're nice people. I would just kind of close up and just be very uncomfortable.
So was this you at school? Were you just obviously trying to fit in? And was there any kind of battle internally with yourself to this of wanting to be you but frightened to be the full you, the true you? Was there any of that growing up?
I think when I was young, in school, depending on the year that we pick, I was probably the most comfortable with my identity and how I put myself out. I was probably more me then, because it was kind of untarnished. It was not affected by the outside world. When you go to an all-girls school, you wouldn't know. You're not even a girl, but you know, if you go to an all-girls school, it can be really cliquey, but it also means because it's not impacted by, you know, like sexualization too early. You know, there's none of that affecting it. There's not even any male teachers who are appealing. You know, they're all fucking old raggedy men or women. So there was absolutely none of that flying around. We could just kind of be young women, and I don't know whether it was just I was really fortunate and I had always had the right group of friends around me, because I didn't have exclusively one set of friends from beginning to end and then moving off to adulthood. I had quite a different stages, different years brought different groups of friends, but they were always quite the odd ones, you know, the weird kids.
The one-offs, I call them.
Yeah, they were absolutely unique, and you know, they just made me feel very comfortable in my skin, and I guess I reciprocated that.
Is that because you felt like you're like a one-off as well? Because you're an individual, you kind of don't fit in with everybody, and you're trying to. Do you feel there's a bit more freedom with
potentially? I don't think that would have ever have crossed my mind growing up, though. It was only really until like coming of age, you know, hitting puberty, where I realised I'm not really like most of the other girls.
And was this, you know, you mentioned like you had more tomboy tendencies. Was this from an very early age?
Yeah. Like I said, always wanted to be in lads' clothes, and just did not feel comfortable in female clothes at all. But the same would go for stereotypical male-female activities as well. Like my mum was friends with another mum from the primary school that I went to. She was friends with a girl in my year's mother, so we were friends. And Rachel was very much a girly girl, you know. She liked wearing dresses, she liked playing with dolls, and she loved Disney movies. You know, who doesn't? But I liked the animal movies like Lion King and Fox and the Hound and stuff. But she would play with all of these Barbies and do the hair of all these dolls, and I didn't know what to do with them, didn't know what to do with myself. She didn't have any toys that I could really work with. I liked Lego and I liked Meccano. I guess probably my dad's influence, because that's what he understood, you know, construction, boys' toys. But
is that difficult at an all-girls school to kind of wear the dresses and kind of feel like you have to fit in? Did you feel forced to fit in?
No, I think I like that there was a uniform, because it meant that everybody else had to suffer as well. And the skirt wasn't the worst thing about Teesside High uniform. When I was in senior school, the uniform was blue and brown. It was minging. It was really minging. And this horrible, like, plastic polyester skirt. So nobody fucking liked it. Even the girly girls, you know, a brown skirt. It couldn't have been worse. It was absolutely revolting.
So your tomboy tendencies, you didn't have an issue at school. You just kind of...
It's a uniform though, isn't it? Yeah. And everybody looks the same. So I didn't feel out of place.
But even activities as well, were you more sporty and stuff like that? Like...
That's a weird one, because although I was quite sporty, but not particularly gifted with sports at that age. I guess down to potentially a few reasons. You know, I've got asthma, and that was diagnosed at a very early age. I was a toddler when I had my first asthma attack. So anything that would make me breathless, any physical exertion that would leave me breathless, and I would get that tight chest. And bear in mind, a lot of the activities are done on like a sports field, and in the northeast of England, it's cold most of the time. You know, we're not at school through the hot months. It's always cold. So, and it was right on the bank of the Tees as well. So you'd get like wind coming up off off the river. So it would be quite cold, and that shocks your lungs a bit and causes things to tighten up. So I guess lacking confidence in my own ability to push myself harder or find true, like, full enjoyment from it, because I was always concerned that I was going to have an asthma attack. I think it shouldn't have been as bad as it could, but I realised that, and nothing against her for it, but a protective mother instinct would be to be very concerned about her baby girl just suffocating because of this inflammatory condition.
So clearly, you know, school's fine. You said you weren't overly academic. What were your favourite things at school? What were your kind of your go-tos?
Hanging out with my friends, PE and art. I had some favourite teachers that taught different subjects, but they were my favourite subjects. They were my favourite thing to do, and social time for me was probably the most important subject. And the greatest thing that I got from school, some interactions with some teachers and the ability to just develop with a safe environment and good people around me as my peers.
So after school, did you know what you wanted to do in life? Was there any kind of pressure from the parents? Obviously, with this in the medical field,
Yeah.
it must be a thing in the house. It's got to be one of those.
It's quite expensive. So each year, the term price, the term fees would increase. Obviously, because of the pressure and the added skills that the teachers need in order to bring good results, because it's all schools are results driven, but especially somewhere like that. So there is a lot of pressure to go into a career, you know, to go and achieve good A levels, to then move into a good university, to achieve a degree, and then to move into a very direct professional line of work. And that's you set. And I could not. I don't know whether this is just because maybe the careers teacher was not geared up to deal with somebody like me who needed a bit more leeway with what routes you could take in life.
Yeah, a few alternative ideas.
Yeah, exactly. And dentistry is what I picked. Hated the dentist growing up. Between the age of 16 and 27, I did not step foot in the dentist because of just traumatic experiences growing up. Being addicted to sugar and eating too many sweets and not being very good at keeping on top of dental hygiene growing up. You know, I was a dirty little bastard and I didn't brush my teeth for days on end. Like, it was that bad. So no wonder I got a lot of extractions, a lot of fillings when I shouldn't really have had any dental problems. That it's not a good experience for a young person to go through, because that's not how it is in the dentist chair now anyway. But if you do look after your teeth and you watch what you're eating and drinking, it shouldn't even be a problem. It shouldn't be a problem at all. But that was my idea. Oh, I'll be a dentist because I hate the dentist and I want to make sure that other people are having a better experience than I did. But that is actually, without dealing with people's mouths, also can't stand anything to do, like, I do not want to be near somebody's mouth, let alone look in it or smell it, you know, for hours a day. That is probably one of the worst things that I could have ever come up with. But it's more about improving somebody else's experience and that caring, nurturing side of whatever line of work I wanted to choose. That was always the tone.
Yeah, because you've suffered like bad experiences, so you want somebody to have a good experience, and you're associating dentists with bad times, aren't you?
Torture, yeah.
But it's mad that you choose that, even though you didn't want to do that, just for the fact that you want people to have a better experience.
Yeah. There was another reason to it as well, you know, because success to a lot of people looks like a big lump sum in your bank account, you know, a lot of money coming into your bank each month. So a lot of it was based on other people's expectations of what it means to be successful, which is financially successful. And dentistry is a very well-paid job. So
So,
I was dealing with my need to care for people and other people's need for me to make a lot of money to do what with, I don't know.
yeah, so it's always that internal pressure and families and stuff like that. Plus, if you don't know exactly where you want to go with your life, then it's going to be influenced heavily by people around you, aren't you? You know,
Yeah.
you kind of easily swayed because you don't have experience about going, no, I don't want to do that.
Yeah.
So clearly, I know you're not a dentist. So
I've been to the dentist since, though, a couple of times, so
you've getting over your kind of
yeah.
So, at what point on this journey did you go, nah, this is not for me? Because I know you're not. So it's kind of far removed from who I know you as a person now.
It's, I guess it happened before I did my GCSEs, so you've got to get certain grades to be able to move into certain A levels, and the path that I was nudged into or had an eye for couldn't exist because of my performance in GCSEs. It wasn't bad. I got C's all round apart from 1D, which was in maths, but far better than my teachers expected of me. I guess because actually I'm relatively smart and I didn't pay any attention for 2 years, did the bare minimum. Panic stations and alarms all went off at home and with the teachers that I was going to do poorly and fail. So last minute cramming and turned out to be a decent haul for somebody who didn't do anything for 2 years, apart from the last month.
Was that just because you didn't want to do it?
I didn't want to fail. Otherwise, yeah, I didn't want to do them. I didn't see the point. I still can't make that connection with what I'm doing in my life now and how performing well in those would serve the me that sits here now. They're all fine and well for somebody who's going down the clear route of education, higher education, and career. But I didn't like that I had to choose one thing. Because ultimately, if you give me infinite choice, I'll seize up and it's too much. I will not make a decision because there's far too much to choose from. If you give me two options, I'm much better at making a good decision and one that I'm very confident with as well. So, yeah.
Is that an issue you still have, Jenny, or not?
Making connections with stuff and not being able to see the long-term point in something that I'm doing now, yeah.
Are you very instinctual though as well?
I guess I can be, but I can also be very stubborn and unwilling to move out of a routine, you know, a very structured and safe, familiar routine.
Yeah, kind of being in your own way a lot of times.
Yeah.
So from that, we can't do this. We're not going to be successful as a dentist. What was your journey? What was your path from then on? Was it 15
Falling
jobs?
in love.
Falling in love.
Yeah, with a much older man,
Yes.
and broke my mum's heart, and she thought it was awful. We fell out. I was 17 and he was 39. So.
And how did you come about seeing like
I
finding each
was
other?
using my sister's ID to get into the nightclub that he was working on the door of. So it's not like he even knew. He thought I was in my 20s. So.
You're motivated to find that way though, aren't you?
Yeah. So met him, fell madly in love, just fucked off, just moved to Darlington. I was given the choice, you know, you continue seeing him and you have to move out, you have to get out of the house. She was just mad, you know, she was so upset and thought I was getting into real danger. Because my mum's, you know, she's previously been married before she was with our dad. And that was an abusive relationship. He was not a very good person. So what do you do as a mother? you're coming up with the worst case scenario, and your immediate reaction is protection. And in that instance, she probably thought, well, she's not going to say, oh, I'll just move in with him then if you don't want anything to do with it. So I did. And then within a year, she was still talking to me, so it was all fine. She just tried to spook me. But yeah, that took me away from all of that. Otherwise, my dad had a word with me when I left sixth form. You know, you can't just do nothing now, you have to go and get a job. I tried working at a call centre and doing a normal job, and that's the most normal line of work that I've ever entertained. It was fucking awful. I have no, like, kudos to people who can do that for a living and do that for years and then retire. I was there for 6 weeks. It lasted 6 weeks, and I'd taken so many sick days because I just could not go to work. I just couldn't face doing it because it was so awful. It wasn't awful, it was just, I would rather be dead than do that to make money. I'd rather be homeless. I got pulled into the director's office, and she said, you know, you've taken too many sick days, so I'm either going to sack you or you can hand your notice in right now. And that'll look better if you hand your notice in. So I was like, oh, hand my notice in. See you. Bye. Moved in with Paul. He got me a couple of jobs working in the bars that he did, and that quickly turned into, I really enjoyed it. I really enjoyed the nightlife. You know, I used to go out to his nightclub with my circle of friends that we were thick as thieves in sixth form when we were underage, and God bless him, he was letting us into his nightclub. But I started working while they were out, so it was kind of like I was making money, but I was still hanging out with my friends, and it was quite entertaining. I liked nightlife back then because my naivety could enjoy it, and then I started seeing the darker side of what goes on in pubs and nightclubs, and you know, like when people take things to excess, or people are taking substances on top of drinking, and the kind of people that you become when you're under the influence of these substances. So I started to really dislike it. At some stage, I started getting involved with altercations in the nightclubs and the bars, because at the time, do you remember there was a stage in recent history where doormen used to be terrifying? You know, you would sure as shit get the crap beaten out of you.
Yeah,
if you
just you would go through the back exit, and
yeah,
there nobody
and
would
every
see you.
single doorman
No
was
cameras,
like that.
Yes, yeah,
Exactly.
door, yeah.
Exactly. At one point that stopped, and some of them still remained because they didn't have any other line of work to go into. But the industry flipped. The SIA badge was introduced to try and bring some rules and regulations to door security on nightclubs, because there was obviously people were taking it way too far and hospitalising punters. So this SIA badge came in, and the price dropped per hour for door staff, and then the numbers of door staff dropped. But all of that whilst the quality of new door staff was dropping. More people were coming in saying, I did this 6-week course and now I'm able to fight anybody. Because it's not about fighting, it's about saying, whoa, back off, calm down, take a breath. It's not like that at all. That's not going to get you far. If somebody wants to have a go, they're going to have a go. So I spent a few years working on the doors until it became too much. When you're comfortable in your skin like I was, in being this kind of tomboy, and you're wearing the clothes of a male, and you're in the nightlife, and there's people who have had a little bit too much sauce, and their lips are free to say whatever their brain comes up with, and there's no regulatory barrier that anything falls out. So there was a lot of are you a man or a woman? And like nagging at me that they had to hear me say whether I was a man or a woman. And I remember like getting home and just crying a lot. Like that was really not very pleasant. It still kind of isn't very pleasant thinking about it. Like, no, that wasn't nice to think about. But
because it must be every night. I mean, Jenny, it must have been relentless, because it's going to be every time you're there.
it became every single shift. I would get that at least once. And it became like aggressive as well. Like, why do you need to know what my gender is? Why is this important? And it just felt like I was being targeted by that. There was never any really traumatizing, violent episodes that I got involved with. I was always quite good at defending myself, and you know the start of my sporting career anyway. You know, I got into it because I was working on the doors and I didn't want to get my head caved in, so I learned kickboxing, and then kickboxing made my body weight drop too much, so I got pushed about a bit too much on the doors, so I started strength training and putting on a bit of weight, and then I got into Strongwoman. But
so is this all because of being on the doors as well, Jenny? Yeah.
That's exactly why I got into kickboxing, and then that turned into strongman. Yeah, it's just like there has to be a reason for me to do something, and it's not just oh I fancy doing that. There has to be a connection.
Yeah, I'm on the doors. I need to be stronger, or I need to be fitter. I need to handle myself more. So, but you don't want to give the doors up. So, at what point are you kind of thinking, I can't do this anymore? What's the clincher on that one?
Another door opened up. So I was working in Yarm, and on one of the doors that I used to finish the Saturday night shift on was the Black Bull. So at the time, the head doorman was a big guy called Simon Wilcox, who's from Redcar, funnily enough, and a lass, Karen McElvanny, who lives in South Bank. And she, like, we got on really well together. And so I got to know what she did for a living besides working on the doors, and she was a dog groomer. And I was like, when I was at school, I wanted to be an RSPCA inspector. So I really like animals. I want to work with animals. Do you think you could get me a job there? And she's like, we're actually looking for somebody to walk the dogs, because they had a daycare centre on the first floor. They would groom on the ground floor, and daycare creche upstairs. So I started walking them a few days a week, and then it turned to every day. And then it turned to, okay, will you help us bath and dry them? Because that doesn't require any skill. This is what you do. And a bit more attention to like inside their feet and stuff, and, you know, down their arse where smelly stuff lurks. Maybe some around their jowls if they're a bit, you know, excess skin type dogs. So that then turned into teaching me some basic trimming skills, and then the owner, Becky, got the idea of opening a hydrotherapy suite next door, because the unit next door was up to let. So she thought that'd be perfect, like daycare, grooming, and hydrotherapy as well, because there was a Clevedale Vets practice on the corner. So we could get referrals from them, just walk over the road, and you can get your insurance company to pay for this treatment. So brilliant idea, and that gave me some direction and some purpose.
So getting you away from the doors.
It was getting me away from the doors, and then at some point I said, right, can't do this anymore, don't want to. I think the last door that I worked at was Yates's in Durham, which doesn't exist anymore. It's still the same group that owned Yates's, but it's now called something different.
Were you still in the relationship at this time, or that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Me and Paul were still together.
So you still had that kind of thing going on, even if you weren't on the doors.
I still was taking him to and from work. You know, he had a brain tumor when he was when he was younger, so he wasn't allowed to drive. So he always had lifts. So yeah, when I quit the doors, I would still be up late,
So the
taking him to work
relationship
and
was
coming back.
pretty successful then, Jenny, yeah?
It was like, it's over now, so it wasn't that successful, was it? It didn't
Yeah,
stand the test of time, but
compared to what your mum thought was going to be, do you know what I mean? I think
absolutely.
it kind of was, and it kind of gave you a direction to just, you had to learn on your own. You had to go off on your own and figure this out. That was the starting point of all of this other journey, wasn't
Yeah,
it?
yeah.
And you had to do it. No one's going to tell you what to do. You're going to figure this out.
Absolutely, and you know, she knows this now, and we'll have really good conversations about it, and she'll admit how scared she was, and that she shouldn't have been. You know, she should have trusted her judgment, that she taught me the right things growing up, because she did. Yeah, I've done some stupid things that she will never know about. Maybe she would, but maybe she does, because she's far smarter than I ever gave her credit for. But yeah, she shouldn't have worried so much. And yeah, it didn't last, but ultimately I owe that man a lot, because he gave me the space where I could be myself in a relationship with the opposite sex, without feeling pressured into being some particular level of feminine. He didn't care. He liked me for who I was, and that was wonderful and exactly what I needed.
Must have helped you grow in that period of time as well. Really kind of find the essence of who you are.
Yeah, I think yes and no. I think he allowed me the space to also do what I wanted in life, and figure out certain interests, because I was obviously a really young person and he was a middle-aged man. But he did clearly understand that he needed to allow me some space and allow me to grow, because I was just becoming an adult. He got me into kickboxing. You know, he had a fighting background. He liked boxing when he was younger. His brother boxed in the army, and he'd always lifted weights since he was about 14 years old, because it's something that his dad taught him and his brothers. So he got me into kickboxing, he got me into weight training, he got me into pursuing strength training, because his style was very much like Arnie's style. You know, it wasn't just about fluffing yourself up, it was about getting strong. You know, you had to progress the weights as frequently as you could get away with and recover from. So I had a really good understanding of basic strength development because of him. And because of him, I stepped into Strongwoman as well.
So you've got the new job, and you're still training. And was that just something that it was just a natural thing that came to you, that real kind of passion? Because it must have been, because you're still doing it to this day, aren't you? So it's kind of, let's talk about the strong woman journey.
Yeah, so it was one particular moment in the gym. I don't see it going anywhere at all. I'm really enjoying the process and the feeling, and I'm enjoying seeing the physical change in my body, which was different to how I felt about a muscular woman's physique prior to starting weightlifting, because I did join the gym with him originally and say, I'm just going to go on the treadmill or the cross trainer, because that's what women do. Is there a woman's room here where I can lift some pink dumbbells? That was kind of where my frame of mind was at the time. And I thought, muscle-bound women, that looks disgusting, that's awful. But because I was into it, I saw the physical changes, I felt that the growing confidence is something that I don't think I mention enough, but that was huge for me, being such a painfully shy kid growing up. I just believed in myself so much, because every time I stepped foot in the gym, I was bettering my previous self, and I was proving myself right every time. Like, if I set my sights on this particular dumbbell, this size dumbbell, I'm going to get that one day. And I believed that I would. And then when I hit it, I was like, see, I was right. And all of that positive data just adds up. And you're in the gym like 4 or 5 times a week. That's a lot of data that you're collecting every single week that's working in your favor and boosting your confidence. So I like that. That is huge for me. But it was a lot more, you know, the aesthetics and looking good, feeling good, getting a six pack, getting big shoulders, getting big biceps, shocking people when you pop them out and they're like, oh God, and they suddenly feel very embarrassed about their puny arms. You know, I really liked that that feeling. It felt quite powerful.
So at what point did you get into the Strongwoman, the competitions and things?
That's it. Forgot where I was going with that, didn't I? So going through the process, started deadlifting, and within like the first year of ever deadlifting, like I've not done a single deadlift constructively. You know, you're picking things up off the floor. People don't know how many times a day they actually do deadlift just with normal objects around the house. But with a barbell with plates on it, it took me about 8 months to get up to 160 kilos. And the day that I pulled 160 kilos, a local strongman, those around the northeast might know of him, Mark McLaughlin. He was a member at the same gym. It was Exercise for Less in Thornaby. And he was watching that and he says, you know, it's really funny because I love him and I get on so well with him. But that day, because that was the first interaction, the two men clocked eyes and they were talking about the woman. I hate that. I hate that. It's so condescending. I cannot believe that. But yeah, he's an old-fashioned guy. And he was more confident and comfortable talking to my partner than he was to me. So he said, you know, that's actually really strong for a woman and she should probably think about competing. He suggested a couple of names that I get in touch with. Gemma Magnuson at the time. Now she's divorced from Benny Magnuson. It's Gemma Taylor and Eddie Elwood. So Hartlepool, born and bred. Well, he's Hartlepoolian as well, so he's got a gym over there. I thought I'd get in touch with him and see if he would know how to help me. Didn't hear anything back. I took it quite badly at the time. I don't know why. I thought I was so special that he should open his inbox and immediately reply to me because one person said that I should do Strongwoman and I might be good at it. Because he obviously had a lot of stuff to do. Because I ignore messages a lot from people and I feel really bad about it, but I'm like, I can't reply to everybody. And I certainly can't remember if I've opened a message or not and not replied. So, long story short, he recommended that I start Strongman. I tried getting in contact with those people and failed, so I just searched on Facebook for a Strongwoman event that was looking for participants. I found one that was 2 weeks away and had no idea what I was getting myself in for, but there wasn't another one until later in the year. This was February and there wasn't another one until like July, and I wanted to like do it sooner rather than later so that I would know whether it was a lost cause or not. It was East Midlands Strongest Woman in Northampton, and I got in touch with, my sister was going out with a personal trainer. He knew a strongman gym in Newcastle, so I went there with him and went through some of the events, like axle clean and press, and I think I got my hands on a keg, because there was a keg clean and press as well, some farmer's handles and a tyre to flip. But everything else I'd never touched before because it wasn't available at FSI in Newcastle. So 2 weeks go by, I had like one session with Chris to prepare myself, and I went in there and I wiped the floor with everybody. I won with a 20-something point lead between me and second place, so I completely dominated it. I had no idea what I was doing. There's a video of 2013 East Midlands Strongest Woman, and if you like flick through some of the videos on there, I'm so scrawny and I have no idea what I'm doing, and it's very clear to tell. Because there was also no, instructional videos on YouTube at the time either. Like, nobody knew what they were doing unless you had a really good coach who had been involved in the sport and understood it. So, like, I would urge people to go and have a look at that because it's hilarious. And you can see on the Atlas Stone loading, which was the last event, my evolution of, this is the first time I've ever picked up an Atlas Stone, and it looks awful and it's terrible. And then by the end of the 60-second time limit, I kind of look like I've figured it out a little bit. It's really cool. It's like the evolution of man, you know, this little A hunched over, and then there's a human being at the end of it who kind of knows what they're doing. And the rest is kind of history. That just snowballed, and I went from that. I fell into a back injury, which put me out for the rest of 2013. But 2014 came along. I placed second at Britain's Strongest Woman. I then qualified for Europe's, and I beat the woman that beat me at Britain's, and I won that overall. And then I just continued winning everything that I dipped my toes into within my weight class, which was middleweight. I did get invited to the return of World's Strongest Woman 2016, which my friend Donna won. I placed 12th out of 15, but you know, it's an open weight competition, and I can kind of let that one go. But yeah, I pretty much won everything that I tried up until 2017 when I retired.
So what was the reason for the retirement? Because it seems like you got into it and you just kind of took over, Jenny. It was something that you really wanted to do. So what was the reason when you kind of stopped? Just
the reason for stopping was I kind of achieved what I had intended to reach for when I started the sport. It was in its infancy, especially for women. I say back then, it's not even that long ago, but there has been such a boom in the sport over the years that I've known about it. 2013 was the first time that I had ever heard women do this kind of thing, because you see World's Strongest Man at Christmas time and you think, oh, it's just for guys, that. It's grown exponentially and it will continue to. But at the time, the pinnacle of the sport, the World Championships, was at the Arnold Sports Festival in Columbus, Ohio. And it was the Arnold Amateur Strongwoman World Championship. So I had qualified for that by winning something. I think it might have been a Britain's title the previous year. I got a qualifying spot and I got invited to Arnold's 2017. And because that was the highest point I could get as a middleweight, I won it. And I was like, well, what do I do now? Do I continue attempting to keep it, or do I bow out? And I was like, well, I'll bow out. Because a few other things happened that year. I broke up with my partner, Paul, who got me into all of this shit. A few reasons, mostly maturity and me continuing to adapt as a human and change. My interests were changing and I was moving forwards, and he didn't want to, and that was fine. You know, he was also getting older. We'd been together for 11 years and that had kind of expired. I was getting frustrated that he was not comfortable changing. And yeah, I just think it was time to go. But it was all kind of, it exploded really badly. I was taking performance-enhancing drugs, and it did a little bit of, it made this a little bit spicy. And I was quite agitated. I was very easily irritable and in an aggressive way. I wouldn't say like I wouldn't physically hurt him. That would be really stupid of me because he was enormous and strong, and yeah, it wouldn't have got me far trying to hit him, you know. But that's not in my nature either. It was more just frustration would accumulate, and I'm thinking more because I'm more confident than I ever have been. I'm very sure of who I am now, and I'm not sure that this person fits in my life anymore. And little things, you start noticing little details when you kind of coming to the realization that this relationship has expired. So you look for reasons to get out. You're looking for triggers. And there'd been quite a lot of triggers over the years. He was, I don't think it's right for me to say he was an alcoholic, but he had alcoholic tendencies, and a lot of the issues that we had in our relationship were down to his need for this substance and poor behaviour while he was under the influence as well.
What was your reason, Jenny, for taking the substances? Was it just because it's going to help you recover? Because I don't want to talk about that in the sport. I want to talk about you personally.
Me personally, I knew that other women were taking it who I was competing against, and I couldn't stand the fact that they were going to trump me because they were taking some special sauce.
I'm like, edge over you, yeah.
I'm going to do what it takes to make sure that nobody knocks me off this podium. Cannot allow it. And I was smart about it. It wasn't necessarily to do with recovery. It was just that pig-headed attitude of, I'm not going to let fucking somebody beat me. Can't do it. I've beaten them before. And I saw, like, in 2013 at that first competition, there was quite, like, Donna was there, and we didn't even know each other because she was in the weight class above me. We didn't interact. So I had no idea that she was there or who she was, because she was nobody at the time. She was baby-faced and just starting the sport as well. But
just for the people at home, who's Donna?
Donna is 3 times world's strongest woman. She is one of my clients. I coach her in the sport. I program her, and she is one of my greatest friends as well.
So you met her through the sport?
We met each other through the sport, yeah.
So, sorry, Jenny, I just wanted context, because you're so close together and you coach her, and she's the person who kind of puts Strongwoman on the map, would we say? Mm-hmm. It's good to kind of shout Donna. So the performance enhancement was just literally just because you wanted to, I'm not going to lose this. Is that the reason?
Exactly, yeah. I felt like it was something that I could comfortably do and not let it affect my appearance too much. I did a lot of research. Paul helped me with that as well, and like, kudos to him, because this doesn't happen very often, where a man who has experience taking drugs, he'd never touched steroids before, but he'd trained with a lot of people who did. He was not comfortable doing it because of the brain tumour. He thought that it would affect the growth of it or his psychology slightly, because the brain tumour changed his psychology quite a bit. But normally what is the case is man meets woman. Man is a roid head and trains a lot, and woman finds him very attractive because he's got this muscular physique and he's really strong, and that's really nice. And then woman wants to get into training, and then man says to woman, you know what would be really good if you took drugs? You'd look even better. You'd probably win some competitions. So man says to woman, well, woman says to man, well, what should I take? Man says to woman, you should take exactly what I'm taking, which is Dianabol and testosterone, and yeah, it's going to be great. And then woman grows a beard and her voice deepens, and she starts getting a receding hairline and a nice shiny forehead. And then man says, oh, didn't intend for this to happen. What's going on? But the vascularization that occurs when you take in drugs that increase your male hormones, should we say. There's a lot more to it, but the effects that a woman will have versus a man are the same, but because the female doesn't have high levels of testosterone, and naturally the effects are much more dramatic than they are for a man who's got naturally much higher testosterone. So the changes are more masculine, they work in his favour more. So Paul really helped with that. He helped me do a little bit of background research, and he was like, I don't want you to do it because I'm scared that you're not going to like it, or it'll affect your health negatively. And I'm like, well, let's just see. I'll take a small amount and we'll do it for a number of weeks, like it suggests on the internet. You know, do it for a set period of time, and monitor the side effects. And if the side effects start becoming too severe, stop. And we know, well, okay, it's not for me, is it? Because what I didn't want was a beard or an even deeper voice than I naturally have anyway, because I started smoking when I was 12 years old, so it dropped right back. Yeah, it worked for me. It worked really well. Steroid of choice was Anavar. I never felt the need to go any stronger than that. That's recommended for female bodybuilders, mostly because it doesn't have as potent an aromatizing side effect, which is the hair growth, the voice deepening, and other side effects. So I just sticked with minimal effective dosage.
So you've come to retire, and did you stop all of the substances as well, just because you want to go away from the sport? And did that affect anything?
There seemed to be no purpose to have steroids in my life anymore because I wasn't a competitive athlete. And in my opinion, one should only ever dabble in such substances when they feel like they are at the highest level of the sport, and that substance has to be allowed in the sport that they're involved in. You know, in strongman, it's not drug tested, so essentially anything goes, you know? So there was no place for it. I'd achieved what I'd set out to achieve. I came off my cycle and I didn't take it again. I've taken it since because I've come back to the sport and dipped my toes in and out and stuff, but it's been about a third of the dosage that I took back then, because it does have this, you know, your body kind of gets used to the dosage. So you adapt to what you've been taking, so you need to increase it slightly so that you can continue this positive trajectory from taking the drugs. So yeah, I stopped in the summer of 2017 and had a really bad time, I'll be very honest about it. I can honestly say I've never had any mental health struggles in my life apart from maybe around the teen years, you know, when your hormones are doing really weird things and, you know, you're very, very obsessed with yourself and so upset that you're not a supermodel or, you know, doing great things and looking amazing like your friends do. But this was something else. I can say that this was probably like the closest I've been to a depressed mindset. I was not well upstairs. I think because of a lot of things, I broke up with Paul in the May of that year. I had ended the career that for the 4 years that I was active in it had shaped my identity, and I think I clung far too much to that identity as Jenny Todd, the under-82 champion.
It gave you a purpose, didn't it, Jenny?
It really did. It really did. And because of the big drop in a nice hormone, it's nice to have high levels of testosterone, I must say. You feel really fucking good about yourself. And that dropped off because I probably didn't deal with it like I should have done. I should have gone on a post-cycle therapy just so that it kind of made things a little bit more comfortable and the estrogen kind of climbed back up and started being normal again. It all just clashed and I couldn't really cope with life for a little bit. I just kind of withdrew, and I'm quite a withdrawn person anyway. I'm very introvert, quite antisocial at the best of times, very awkward. But I just closed down, closed the doors. I stopped like leaving the house unless I had to go to work. It was shit. It was really shit.
So how did you come out of it? What was the journey for that?
I guess ultimately I got over myself and I realised, well, you took the wrong fucking approach to coming off drugs. You shouldn't have done it like that. You should have been a bit more careful and methodical in carefully bringing down the substances. You should have spoken to somebody, you know, you broke up with an 11-year relationship that ended, and now you've got to deal with being on your own for the first time in your life. That was the first time I had ever had to live on my own. I'd always had my mum around or Paul, and I was on my own, and that was really scary. And then the identity thing, I think, was the biggest factor in there. You know, I'd found, because of Strongman, it'd given me so much power to be myself and to be confident in myself, and just like it shaped me into the adult that I am now, and I'm so grateful for that. But it was just a mode of transportation. It wasn't the destination. So I should really have seen it like that, but you don't at the time, do you?
But it seems you've thought about it, and you've thought about it very maturely as well, because there's an acceptance in that's what I was, that's what I've done, and this is where I am now, and you feel like you're pretty even keel. Do you think that now, Jenny?
I would think so, yeah. I don't really, you know, nobody's perfect upstairs. I think if they think that they are, they're probably deluded, and there's probably something else going on up there. I'm very self-aware, because I'm just a deep thinker. I'm not a big talker, so there's not an awful lot of time to ignore your thoughts, is there? But also in listening to your thoughts, you've got to have some sort of direction with them and not allow them to become damaging. I'm very into self-help books. I'm very into spirituality, and like, yeah, I guess I just grew up. I'm 36, you know, me speaking at the age of 26 wouldn't be saying stuff like this just because I haven't had enough time on Earth, really. But yeah.
So if you'd leave a message for people out there in a similar situation, because you've been in the strength game for a long time. I mean, we could talk another 4 hours on your whole career as well. We might do a part 2, I think, later on some point. What would be a message, just how you're thinking now, the person sitting in front of me, to people out there beginning the sport or dealing with issues or whatever you want to say?
I'd probably say something along the lines of find what really, really floats your boat, you know. What's the phrase that Donna likes to say? Something that sets your soul on fire. And just let that guide you for a little bit, because good things really happen when you follow your passions. If you follow love, as long as it's not deluded, good things going to happen, because, you know, you're going to learn stuff along the way. You're going to trip over and you're going to stumble, and you're going to learn from those little failures. But ultimately, you want to set your eyes on something that you can progress and enjoy, and something that brings you some colour to your life and brings in other people. Because, you know, as much as you like to think that people are not that important, being an introvert, my friends are the reason that I am the way that I am, and happy with who I am as well. And you can only meet cool people by doing cool stuff, yeah, and just getting out there. So I'd say find something that you're passionate about and just enjoy it, but don't think that that's going to be it, you know. Be open to it changing. Be open to your passions changing throughout your life, because they fucking will. And yeah, just go with the fucking flow. That's all.
Thanks, Jenny.